welcome to the Update 41 Necromancer PvP build. This video is sponsored by... just kidding. Now, we're in the Stoons Goons guild house here, so I figured it was a pretty sweet background slash setting to do this build video. This is going to be the build that we're going to use in Update 41. Everything that I have on it, the gear, the skills, the pots, the poisons, the mundus, the race. This is exactly what I will be using when Update 41 launches for the Xbox North American server. And with that being said, I do appreciate any of the support and all of the basically just thanking everyone that's stuck with me, is new to the channel, new to Necromancer in ESO itself, and I'm happy to participate and be that advocator to help keep this class going. And it's in a it's not even in a rough patch. It's stuck without a lot of useful tools that a lot of the other classes have, and unfortunately it's basically just a crippled class per se. But without making too much of a senseless babble speech, let's dive right into the build, okay? So looking at our character sheet, these are our unbuffed stats. These are going to be affected by a couple of different things. Battle Spirit, if you're in Cyrodiil, you're going to have scroll buffs. If you're in Battlegrounds, you're going to have no CP. So this is in a guild house, but we're kind of away from everything, so you can kind of get the raw data as it's displayed here. Max magic, max health, max stamina. They're all sitting exactly where they need to be. They don't have to be higher, but they really shouldn't be lower. The recoveries will go up with our passives. Our spell damage is looking good. Our penetration's looking good, and our resistances are also looking good. Switching to the back bar here. These are all unbuffed still. Magic recovery goes up just a little bit because resistance flesh can be quite costly when you're spamming it. And then we are using the Jewels of Mizrael, basically bread and butter at this point. Hybridization is a thing. It's not going anywhere. I suggest that you either pick up this or you can use Smoked Bear Haunch, but there's really no point because we're being a stage 3 vampire. So you're kind of, wasting your gold if you don't necessarily really need the health recovery. Your magicka and stamina recovery will be slightly better, but it's really unnoticeable. And then the Atronach is the current mundus that I'm using. I found that this basically, for the Necromancer per se, it's the must. Like, you can probably swap this for some more damage if you're with some groups that could provide passively more recovery or what have you, but I rely on high recovery stats, and with that, it's made the Necromancer, in this build particularly, a lot more viable. So let's we'll do the defensive buffs here first. So this is what our defenses look like. This is the same in Battlegrounds 2. This is also before resistant flesh procs, so we can see well above 30k resistances, and our recovs are still looking good as well. That's also without a pot. And then let's go attack this little guy right here. These are our spell damage. I don't think Clever was procced with that. Yeah, oh yeah, it was procced. Okay, so that's with Clever, but that's before Balworks. So with this build, you can see up to 6k spell damage, and that's going to be really fat heals, really good damage overall. I don't have a way of proccing Sea Serpent's Coil in here because nothing's attacking me, but keep that in mind too. This build's getting 2 buffs next patch. Vamp Claw is always going to proc the bleed status effect. Blast Wounds is going to be, yep. Yeah, I was dueling with this, not dueling, but we were in Battlegrounds together, having some fun. Let's jump right into the gear. Yes, Snake in the Stars. This is kind of a slept-on set. Not a lot of people run it, but when people see it on their death recap, it does hit pretty hard. And the way that our skills are lined up, this is going to be most effective with two of the Necromancer abilities that are going to get buffed next patch. One of them being Blighted Blastbones, the other one being the Graveyard. So what this is going to give us is Magic and Recovery, Max Magic, Weapon and Spell Damage, and then our 5th piece bonus also gives us additional Magic and Recovery. But the 5 piece here is what's going to be shining. Applying a major or minor debuff to an enemy applies Star Venom for 4 seconds, and this can happen every 12 seconds. Whenever the enemy with Star Venom is healed, they take 1381 Oblivion damage up to every 0.1 seconds. So if you've got somebody that's got all these hots on them, particularly Stamsorks, I see you guys out there spamming all these different hots. Your Templars, your healers, BGs, you have that one healer, Red-Headed Monster, Sassy Dragon, I'm pointing you guys out. You got these guys proccing all these heals, but you're going to take a lot of Oblivion damage. Now, I know the window is short, it's only 4 seconds, but 0.1 seconds is a lot of ticks within 4 seconds. So you're going to take all that Oblivion damage on top of this skill right here that's getting buffed next patch. So Blighted Blastbones is not only going to be doing Major Defile, but you're also going to have Minor Defile attached to it as well. So you're going to have 24% reduced healing. That is absolute bonkers. This is the plague diseased playstyle of Necromancer. That's what this guy right here is supposed to be able to do. You're going to hit them with all of your skills, and then Blighted Blastbones is going to hit all the enemies in an AoE in your graveyard when you have everything lined up. It is a bit complicated to set up, but once you get it down and you practice a little bit, it's very rewarding in the end. So Snake in the Stars is going to apply that huge debuff to them, and then Blighted Blastbones is just going to finish it off. But in the meantime, you're going to have, you know, your dot from Graveyard, your dot from Degen, and then you're going to pepper them with Ricochet Skull. So before we get into the skills anymore, let's keep going with our gear here. Clever Alchemist. You know, this is kind of a staple on a lot of my builds lately. I used to do Nobility and Decay, but I've learned that, you know, yeah, that's great in like solid group utility, but if you want to optimize your build completely, especially with the weakest PvP class, you need to have 2 damage sets on. And the best way to do that with getting away with having the tankiness and the healing on your side is just up your spell damage as much as you can. Because the higher your spell damage, the higher and greater your heals are going to be, and then the more survivability you're going to have. So Clever on the back bar is definitely a must. What this is going to give you is a bunch of health, weapon and spell damage, and then when you hit a pot on your back bar, which is the way I have it set up currently, you're going to get a huge spell buff window. So 675 for 20 seconds. You know, factor in your multipliers for whatever else that you have with your damage output, like Sea Serpent's Coil, your Major Sorcery, Brutality buff, all that stuff. So it factors out to about 6k spell damage once we're fully buffed up. Balorg, like I said, the higher your damage, the better your heals, the more survivable you are. So this is going to give you spell damage, and then when you hit 500 ult, you're going to get 500 weapon and spell damage, and then a lot of penetration that comes with it. Trainee, of course, and then I have basically all multi tri-stat enchantments on all my gear. Just trying to keep our max stats as high as they can. You know, PvP can get rough in a tight pinch, so you got to have that that resource available for whenever you need a dodge roll or pop a hot, a burst heal, whichever. Sea Serpent Coil, I mentioned this earlier in the build. Now, some people are hesitant of using this, but you got to be smart about it. And I'm going to do a couple commentary videos explaining what my thought processes are, the way that I engage with combat, disengage with combat. This is not a runaway and kite build. This is a stand your ground and basically just debuff the enemy and out-survive their burst combos. And the way you're going to do that is with this guy right here. So it's going to give you the 40% damage reduction. And no, that's not going to be up all the time. But like I said, high damage, high healing, high survivability. So once that 40% damage reduction is gone, you're going to get the 10% increased damage on top of major courage, which is another 430 weapon and spell damage. So keep in mind, this right here is useful, but that 10% with Sea Serpent's Coil stacks on top of your Pestilent Colossus. That does not go with major vulnerability, so you're now at 20% increased damage. And it's a pretty decent window. So 12 seconds here, and then I think Sea Serpent's Coil is what, 10 seconds? Yeah, Serpent's Revoke, 10 seconds. So you have a solid window to do some either crazy damage or crazy healing, or a little bit of both, but it's basically 10 seconds in PvP is a very long time. So, not necessarily kiting because we are slow, but we're slow for a reason. We're slow because we hit hard. We're slow because we can heal hard. We're slow because we're not something to be messed with, and if you're going to be up in my face, then you're going to be hit with a bunch of ground AoE effects. And that's the way this build shines. You know, you're going to take Sea Serpent's Coil and Snake in the Stars and combine everything together to basically just be a walking plague dealer. That's where this build's name came from. This is called the Defiler, because you're going to get hit with major and minor defile, and then you're going to debuff them with the Star Venom, because they're going to try and out-heal all that incoming damage, but they're going to get more damage on top of it. It's honestly a clutch way to play, and I wish I had played this sooner and made it more usable with Necromancer's passives and skills. But, you know, good things come to those who wait, and we're getting a little bit of a buff with Blighted Blastbones next patch, and it's going to be even better than it is in Update 40. So, champion points. I do a lot of Battlegrounds, so I don't tend to pay too much attention to this, but I have played around with it a little bit. Force of Nature, we're going to have all these debuffs on them, so that it's just going to increase our penetration even more. Fighting Finesse, the Necro passive, Death Kneel, is going to increase your your critical chance against the enemy. That's also getting buffed, so we're probably going to be sitting at a 55 to 65 crit chance, so having some increased crit damage on your side is going to be pretty much a necessity, just because you got to rely on that execute, because we don't really have one in our toolkit. Master at Arms are going to increase our direct damage, and then Untamed Aggression. I like to keep this up because this affects pretty much everything in the build. Damage and healing, hence your survivability. In the red tree, we are looking at Boundless Vitality. Max health is very important. We're always going to have a debuff on you. If you're not running a purge, then this... If you are running a purge, then this isn't really necessary, but you know, the more recovery you have, the better, right? Pain's Refuge, I will always take increased damage mitigation. And then we are running Sea Serpent, so Celerity is kind of important too. So yeah, like I said, BGs is what I mostly do, but CP's not that important to me. But if I do run into Cyrodiil or Imperial City, that is what I have. Let's talk about the skills here. So the skills to me are what make the Necro shine. It's basically what makes me come back to this class, because there's so many different types of play styles, but the one that I tend to lean on more is more of the Magicka side of it, which is why we have the high Magicka recovery. But the way the burst combo is set up, if we buff up here real quick. Okay, so let's find a target dummy here. We're going to look at Mr. Target Spriggan right here. You're going to buff up here. Now you're in combat. You're in combat. You're going to hit at them with a degen. Blast Bones. I know it's kind of hard to see because we're on a raised platform here, but you light attack Blast Bones, light attack Degen, light attack Ultimate, light attack Grave Grasp, and then your Blast Bones is going to hit them right when the graveyard pops up, and then every debuff that you place on the enemy happens at once. So I'll do it again, just to, you know, I'll show it off one more time because it's hard to. You have to do it so fast where you can't really talk while the entire combo is going off, but I can slow it down again and then I can speed it up again, show the process. So what I do is I always try to be fully buffed before I engage. Like here's a group right here, they're fighting, I come around the corner, degen, hit my clever. Then rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. It's a lot of damage, and I'll slow it down here again. So we buffed up, ran in, hit our degen, Blast Bones, Colossus Ultimate, and then while Blast Bones is charging up, we hit our Grave Grasp, and then on that third tick of the Grave Grasp, we want to hit our Boneyard, because our Boneyard is what's going to hit the major breach on top of what our Battle Org's already giving us. So we're sitting at around 20k spell penetration. Because remember, when you have your Blast Bones up, you're going to get that extra 1500 penetration from our passives too. So degen, Blast Bones, Colossus, Grave Grasp. Third circle of the Grave Grasp, you want to have your Boneyard already in it. And then once Blast Bones hits it, everything's going to take all that incoming AoE damage, plus all of their debuffs. Then they're going to spam their hots, and they're going to spam their burst heals, and they're going to take all of that star venom from our Snake in the Stars. So it's a super awesome, very reliable, very easy to do combo once you get it down. I know it looks intimidating because you have to hit 5 different skills, but they all sync with each other. They all have these timers on them to where they all line up and hit each other at once. So let's do it one more time in fast motion here. I'm going to do it from a different angle, so it's probably a little easier to see. I'll do it from over here. I know we're on a boat. Not the best house to show all these combinations here, so I guess over here was probably the best. Buff up. Got our degen going. Make sure our clever's going. And then everything just hits together at one time. It's nice, simple, easy rotation. And you don't always have to have a Colossus going off. Like say you're on your ultimate cooldown. Buff up again. It's just an easy, simple thing to do. Make sure they have their degen. Blast Bones, Grave Grasp, Graveyard. Blast Bones, and then hit them with your skulls over and over again. They're going to move out of their graveyard because nobody's going to stand in that, so then you just rinse repeat. Degen, Blast Bones, and then hit them with the Grave Grass Graveguard combo. Nice and easy to do. Very effective too. I've learned that if you can, you know, keep this up, position yourself, time it up again, it's not hard to do. It looks hard to do, but it's really not. So once you practice it a couple of times, put your muscle memory to where each skill has a, you know, to me, like, all my AoEs generally are on my buttons, and then my spammables are going to be on my bumpers. That's the way I like to play. I know this isn't like an in-depth Necro how-to, but I'm just explaining how, you know, once you have all these buttons you have to hit for a specific combo, if you place them on buttons that are easy for muscle memory, then it really comes to hand, and it makes it possible. One more time. And the nice thing too is you don't have to be stunned. Immobilize is, you know, a really strong skill. So that's the combo. Let's go over the skills here. Running into a 22-minute video already. I don't like to make these super long because I don't want to bore people. But I just like to explain everything and my thought process behind things. So, Unnerving Boneyard. It's a nice dot. This is going to get buffed next passive. if you use the other morph of Blast Bones, which is Sacrificial Grave Lord. I can't talk. Speaking is not. I can't do good English. Sacrificial Grave Lord. So that'll get buffed with it, and we're using the Major Breach morph of this skill. And then your allies can also hit the synergy too, so that's great group utility. Degen, you know, this build really does lack a major sorcery, major brutality tool in its toolkit. So, you know, it's a great dot. It's probably one of the best dots in the game. And then it's going to give us magic passives too, so keep that in mind. Empowering Grasp, this is one of my favorite skills that the Necro contains. So let's go over it real quick. For those that don't use it, they have no idea, they've never touched it, they don't see anybody using it. You summon 3 patches of skeletal claws from the ground in front of you. Enemies in the first area are snared by 30%, immobilized in the second area, and stunned in the third area. There are times where players will get hit with all 3 of these. So the way that works is, particularly when someone's running away from you, if you hit this and they're still running in front of you, they're going to get hit with the snare, the immobilize, and then the CC. And it can stack on top of each other in a small area. So say you're up against a wall. Oh yeah, we're in a guild house, so it's not going to really show because of the way it's set up in here. But you can hit somebody with all 3 of these at once. Oh yeah, like right here. Especially in a tight corridor in battlegrounds, you're trying to run away from people. You can turn around, hit them with this. They're going to get hit with every single one of them. And it doesn't really cost them much either. It's honestly, it's so underrated that people tend to forget about it, but it does a lot in one skill. So not only does it do the 3 circles with the 3 effects, which also buffs your CP passive. The more effects that you have, the more penetration you have. Each applies minor maim and reducing the damage that they do to you, and it increases the damage and the healing of your summons by 1,000. So Blast Bones is going to get an extra 1,000 damage, and your Ghost is going to get an extra 1,000 heal on top of that. You know, in Battlegrounds, it's going to be halved, so 500, 500, what have you. Still, it's buffing your summons, so that's the way Necros should be played. Ricochet Skull. This is also getting buffed. It's going to do an AoE with the Gravelord Sacrificial, whatever the hell that skill's called. But we're using Blighted Blast Bones, so that's not going to really take effect. But it does pretty decent spammable damage, and it doesn't cost that much. And the the third cast is going to do that 50% increased damage. So with that being said, this is a great utility to, you know, once everybody's in your graveyard Gravegrasp combo, the cleave damage with the increased 50% is super nice, because that is a way to finish people off. Blighted Blast Bones, the Decay Skeleton, it's going to do disease damage. Talked about how it's going to also do Minor Defile on top of Major Defile. That's going to really come in hand with our Snake in the Stars combo. Pestilent Colossus, more disease damage. It's going to do major vulnerability, increasing your damage by 10%. Stacking with your Sea Serpent's Coil. These tooltips here I've seen get up to 12, 13, and 15k. So it's a super strong ultimate. You know, we get it back real quick because of our Necro passives and our skills. Dead in Pain, that helps out a lot with it. So on our back bar we have Dead in Pain. It's another HOTS. This is going to give us major protection. You can get 25 seconds depending on how many corpses that you consume with this. It's another really useful tool. Necromancer benefits from it. Resistant Flesh, you're getting a burst heal from this. The Minor Defile doesn't really matter to you because you get the 8% back in your passives anyways. I don't really know why that's a thing here, but whatever. Resolving Vigor, mainly using this for the spell resistance and physical resistance from the Minor Resolve. It's a nice hot too, and it frees up another slot, so you don't have to like necessarily dip into your magical pool too much. Summer's Armor, it's going to help reduce our skeletal Mage, Blast Bones, and Spirit Mender. I know we're not running the Mage, but it does help with the other two. Spirit Guardian, another 10% damage reduction plus another hot. And then Ravenous Goliath, if you're really getting beaten down and you need to, you know, like an O panic button, this is what you're going to hit. It's going to give you a bunch of health and then a bunch of max health. And then it kind of, you know, pretends to be a hot, but it doesn't really it doesn't really help at all with healing because people are going to focus you when you're in this form. So try to use it to however you think is best, but I usually just use it and then heavy attack as much as I can. Try to get my distance, try to regroup with my teammates. And that is the build. I know we're running close to a 30-minute video. I'm going to do some editing here so that way it's not, you know, fully dipping into people's time, and everybody's got a busy day, busy schedule, so I'll shorten it up. I'll try to make it a little bit better, but that is the Necromancer that I will be using for update 41. This is the Magicka style. I do every once in a while jump around on a Stam Crow, but this is the way I prefer to play, so that's why I'm going to share it with you guys. This is the Defiler. This is the Stoon Goons boat. We are at the guild house. Thanks for stopping by. I will see you guys in the graveyard. Peace out. Stay frosty.